Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our program tonight. And we are back in session.
Hola.
Hola, good evening, everyone. And I want to welcome you to another Mom's Night In with Faith-Filled Moms.
Hi.
I am your host for tonight, Tanya May Event. And I am welcomed and joining my lovely producer and guest from last week, Miss Markeisha Green. Hello, Markeisha.
Hello.
Hey, and then also our guest coordinator, Shira, is on. Shira Vertice is with us. Good evening, Shira.
Good evening.
So
how are you doing?
We are late. We're starting late. We had some technical difficulties, but we always say when we have technical difficulties, we know the show is going to be fire. So thank you for waiting. It is going to be a wonderful, wonderful night. Markeisha.
Yes.
How do you feel? Last week was just. It was another powerful. It was.
Wow.
I don't even know. Just go ahead. You put what are your feelings after last week and sharing your story?
It was emotional. I hadn't realized that I had been holding in so much trauma.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't realized that I was ignoring that trauma.
Not dealing with it, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I cried a little bit afterwards. I watched it again. It was difficult to watch.
Watch yourself, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But overall, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from friends.
Mm-hmm.
I've had some sorors text me saying that, my story pretty much mirrored theirs, and heard from a lot of people. Got some not so positive feedback. But it's difficult sometimes to hear.
Truth can be difficult, right?
Yeah, the truth.
And we think back to Paula, our guest who was on Space and Grace, right?
Yeah.
That's all we can do is offer a space and grace for whoever. They're entitled to feel how they want to feel, but many times to protect our own peace and in our grieving process, we need to just offer space and grace.
Yeah, I had one relative, I think that her response was that your story was interesting. And then she proceeded to tell me a story about Ron. And I was like,
thank you.
Did you not hear what I said?
Thank you for sharing. No.
But it was like she was talking over the whole thing. Like, oh yeah, that happened to you. Remember the time when I visited him in Pittsburgh? And I'm like, no, I don't remember when you went, and that was when he was, in space. And I was just sitting there and I was like, it was hard for you to,
a little bit more space, right?
Yeah. I was like, I think you need just a little bit more time to digest some of these things that you heard. And
I think same thing with you. You were saying you hadn't dealt with a lot of things and maybe that person's not ready to deal with it yet too. And that's fine.
I think so.
That's fine.
I think so. Because, when you have an idea of someone in your head because of your interactions with them, and
you see a whole other side of them, right?
You see a whole other side, and to hear that, they weren't the kindest person. They weren't, the nicest. And, you maybe on the outside looking in, you saw all of us and you thought, wow, that's the family I want. That's, oh, she's doing her thing. And, Ron and Marsha and we're all. And the reality of it was that I was trying to get as far away from them as possible, and that's kind of, it was difficult for some people.
Yeah. And it's going to be difficult again tonight. We know even with our guests tonight and throughout the rest of the month, it's going to be difficult. So again, I know we're starting late. So Markeisha, we need you to keep us on track. We know we have to finish in an hour. So I know you're going to keep track because I don't even know what time we started at this point. So you keep us on track. I'm going to say goodbye to you. I'm going to say goodbye to Shira. I just want to say hello to some of those that are joining us tonight. Hello to Ann. I see is on. Thank you for praying as we were waiting. So obviously, typically we like to start right on time. So thank you for being so patient, and everybody that was patient. Thank you for waiting. Carmen, good evening. She said she was getting nervous too. We were getting nervous
because this technology glitch happened literally
right before
5 minutes before we went live. There was nothing going on. There was no problems, which was just weird. That was unusual.
Mother Elaine, and some people call her Mother Bessie or Aunt Bessie. I see them both online, so thank you. And I see Carolyn Lewis is on from Galloway, New Jersey. So Carolyn, thank you so much for joining. And whoever else is joining us, I know again we said Beverly's out there, my mom is out there, all those that Aunt Chris is out there, all those that join every single week. And or not able to, it's perfectly fine. We know you're there. We thank you so much for your support. And so please just jump on and say hello to us. But I want to bring our guest out. So ladies, thank you so much. I will say good evening to you.
All right.
Bring on our amazing guest who we already know that the enemy does not want her on tonight because of we had the face night. But Fahtema, you are here.
Hello, finally. I'm like, what just happened? But I am so grateful.
It is. It's going to be okay. And it's funny to see the growth. I think 3 years ago when we first started, I would have been beside myself in nerves. And so it's just like, God, thank you for the maturity and just the grace to see, just to trust in him. And he allows it to happen in his own time, in his own way. But thank you for joining us. I know we're in a series, difficult topic, loss of a brother, and you're going to be sharing your story with us. But I just want you to, if you don't mind at first, just say hello to everyone. Let us know who you are. Talk about your family, whatever you do, whatever you want to share with our guests. Go ahead and do that.
Hello, everybody. First and foremost, this is so outside of my comfort zone. So trust me, this is not my thing. But
we thank you and we appreciate you. Yeah.
I thank you for the space to just discuss my brother, talk about my brother. So once again, I'm Fahtema Lewis. My husband is Joe Lewis. Carolyn Lewis is my mother-in-law. Thanks for joining tonight, Mama. And as we go forth, I'm a very closed off person normally, but when people want to know, I have no problem with sharing. So thank you.
And what do you and your husband do, ma'am?
Oh, sorry. My husband is Pastor Joe.
Yes, we want to give you honor tonight.
Yes, my husband is Pastor Joe Lewis, Height Church, and although that is what his passion is, he is a school teacher. So, we just working together, parents of 4, and we just thriving. That's all we can do at this point.
That's awesome. And we also have pictures of your brother who you will be sharing about tonight as well, Melvin. So just wanted to just share those. And we like to just share that at the beginning, but we're going to get into your story. And for everyone, Fahtema's story will be on faithfulmoms.org tomorrow, first thing in the morning. It will be there. So if you've signed up on faithfulmoms.org, you will get her blog email directly to your inbox in the morning. If you haven't, you can always go to faithfulmoms.org. But we like to encourage all of our guests to please sign up at faithfulmoms.org. That way you get all of the notifications for future shows, future guests, specific links that you can click on the link and join instead of having to find us on Facebook and YouTube. And you get the blogs to get the full story the next day after you've heard the conversation. So Fahtema, I want to get right into it because I know we're running late and I want to make sure we get through all of your story. So I just, again, want to welcome everyone to Moms Light In and Faithful Moms. We are a community of moms. We provide biblical and emotional support, content, and resources to bring hope, encouragement, inspiration, and information to women facing difficult seasons in life. And so our difficult season that we are highlighting this month are moms that have lost a brother. So I just want to open us up in prayer because I know it's going to be at times difficult to talk about, but God will just give you the strength to get through this, and we will get right into it. Dear Heavenly Father, God, I just thank you once again for another Tuesday, another Mom's Night In. We just thank you so much for Fahtema. We thank you so much for her willingness and transparency to share her story. God, I pray that you would just strengthen her right now as she just shares her story. God, just give her the strength that she needs to be able to to talk through the memory of her brother and what you've learned, that she would be able to just speak into those that may be struggling with grief, struggling with just loss and the pain, God, that we know that you are a comforter and you're close to the brokenhearted. So as always, we pray that you would just be with us, be with all of our technology, be with everything that we need so that this story would not be hindered in any way, shape, or form. And we will give you the glory each and every time. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Okay, so I want you to start off talking about your brother, just kind of introduce him to our guests and just kind of share about the relationship and the closeness of your relationship.
Okay, so me and my brother is Melvin Curtis Berry Jr., so he is a junior. We were super close. Like that was my best friend, my rock, my everything. And so when you look at my brother, you would think he would be so annoyed because he prayed. I mean, I say prayed, mind you, we weren't religious at the time, but he
Mm-hmm.
prayed for a little brother, but he got me. So he did like everything in his power to make me as tomboyish as possible. So, like little things like video games, rushing, like just play fighting, toss me around, like loved it. So like as much as like my mom and dad was like, she's a little girl, he didn't care. I was like the closest thing to a brother because it was like he was second, I was fourth. It was supposed to be girl, boy, girl, boy. So he
You
was
messed
just
it up.
like,
You messed
yeah,
up the
he was like,
pattern.
no. He was like, no, I'm gonna make you my little brother, even though you're my little sister. So, but with that being said, like he was the jokester, he was the comedian of the family. He had the purest heart. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it wasn't a stranger he met. If it was somebody that he had a issue with, he would always find a way to become like the peacemaker, even if he felt like, this person get on my nerves. He would never bring that to them. It would always
Mm-hmm.
be like, I'll find a way to kind of adjust so that everything is cool. My brother was the one that you always look forward to. He would dance with you. He would sing with you. I mean, he was just absolutely amazing. So of course, any little girl would be like, "Hey, that's my big brother." So I was that little girl. I
Mm-hmm.
was a spoiled brat, and I could do no wrong in his eyes. Rightfully so, right? Who would who would think anything else? So like when it comes to me and my brother, it was like I was his little shadow as
Mm-hmm.
long as he allowed it. When it became times where I really could not be around, he would always pacify me and say, "Look, I understand. Normally, this is what you would do." But then he would say, "But I have to do this without you today. Can I make it up to
Oh,
you? Can we do something else another time with just me and you?" And stuff like that. So it was like he would always make sure that even if he couldn't be with me, I was an important part, and he always wanted to make sure that I can't do it today, but I'll be there tomorrow, or we'll schedule a special date. So little things like that. My brother was just the best.
yeah. He sounds amazing. And even as I read your blog, I just kept, and I look at the picture, like he just sounds like such an amazing guy. And some of the things I thought were very interesting, like you both, like even the year difference between you and being born in the same month. Talk about like the birthday parties and how you both celebrated
Oh,
even your
so
birthdays.
of course, like I'm 9 years younger than my brother, so our birthdays are in June. He's June 8th. I'm June 23rd. And my parents, they're like, "Why do two parties? You know, he can have his friends over. She's little. She's not going to need much. But obviously, I'm a little girl, so it became like a pink puffy cake or like pink fluffy cakes and stuff like that. But he didn't mind. He kind of made it like his own. He dealt with the girly cookouts and things like that. But eventually, like we both really like roller skating. So once I think I was like maybe 11 or 13 when we figured that out.
Mm-hmm.
And then from then on, it was like, "Ma, I got her. We're gonna do a skating party."
Yeah.
So it was his way of like making it something that he enjoyed, but then also it was something we shared, but it
Mm-hmm.
also didn't specify like girly. So like I promise you, my brother was always like, "I got it." He had a good friend that worked at the skating rink, so it was one of those things where it was like, "Sabor, my sister's doing her party here." It wasn't no question. It was just no problem.
Yeah.
I'll set the time, what time she want. And then the older we got, that just became our thing. So like our last birthday was at the skating rink. Even though at that point clearly we didn't have to share a date, he always showed up. He always made sure like it was our thing.
Yeah.
So
That's
Yeah,
sweet. That is so sweet. And talk, how old were you for that last birthday? Because I want to kind of transition into his passing as well. So talk even about
I was I
good.
just turned 17.
Hmm.
So my brother turned 26. I had just turned
So
17.
he was 26,
And
still having a party with little sis.
of course,
Yes,
he had to
that's
show up. He had to do the dance. We did the little chicken birthday dance on the stage.
yes,
It was
yes.
just,
That's at the skate, and yes, I remember
yes.
that. That just tells you, to me, that just tells the kind of character he had. To
Yeah.
26 years old and still coming to make sure he's celebrating his birthday with little sis. That's just, I don't know. That's just so sweet. Girl. So as we move in, and I know it's a tough topic to talk about, but I wanted to ask you just to kind of share about his accident and just what happened and kind of the dynamics around his accident, the dynamics around the time in America, what was going on
Hmm.
there, and how that impacted how you were able to process what was going on.
So for us, it was, well, September's just a sucky month all around for our
Mm-hmm.
family. The first thing being that September 3rd, our father passed away, and my brother, he was in a motorcycle accident on September 7th. That accident resulted in a hit and run. So the driver hit him, left him in the road, just left him. And I think that's what really hurt the most. Is like, I understand it's an accident, and whether you stopped and stayed or you didn't, the fact that you just left him there was like, are you kidding me? You don't do that to a dog. Like, we live in, I live in the country. If I hit a deer, I'm calling the cops and I'm waiting for them to come to put the deer out of their misery. So like, I don't see how a person can do that.
Yeah.
So with this driver, they hit him, left him there, and kept going. So September 7th, back to school time. I was actually shopping with my mom for back to school supplies and stuff, and we got the call from his friend saying, "You need to get to the hospital. Melvin was in an accident, and he was on his motorcycle." So that right there automatically like a trigger, because
Mm-hmm.
you have no protection in a
Mm-hmm.
motorcycle. So it's like, yeah, they look fun, they look cool, but you're not protected. You're the vehicle when you
Yeah.
get hit. So knowing that he was on his motorcycle was automatically like a pause, like, oh, he's really hurt. So we get down, my mom and I, we get down to the hospital, we get to the back, and mind you, I'm not old enough to go in the back, but they didn't ask no questions. I just went in the back. So I go back there and I'm like, oh my goodness, like, Norman, I love you so much. You're going to be okay. And he was like, I know, baby kid. I love you. I love you. But he said, I need to talk to mommy.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, that was my key to like back off.
Mm-hmm.
But before I got out, I heard the agony in his voice. And he was like, Mom, it just hurts so bad. It just hurts so bad. And so hearing that, it kind of dampened the mood at the time,
Mm-hmm.
because of
Mm-hmm.
course when I'm back there with him, he's like, I'm okay, big kid, I'm gonna be all right, I'm gonna be all right. And although I see the damage, I
Yeah.
don't. I'm taking his word. He's telling me he's gonna be all right. I love you, no problem. So when I heard him talk to my mom, that was when I got a little bit like, oh, this might not be good. So that's September 7th. Mind you, September 11th became significant this year. September 11th, 2001, we all know the tragedies of 9/11, the Twin Towers collapsing. So that day was the day that the hospital shut down for us. So like we were keeping visual of my brother, checking in. Even though I was at high school at the time, I would go to the hospital right after high school, visit him, sit with him, talk to him, stuff like that. So September 11th, I was told I couldn't enter the building. And I'm like, what do you mean? How can we not enter the building? Like, my brother is here. He's in the ICU. He's on life support. So what do you mean I can't come visit him? Well, at that point, they were expecting traumas to come from the World Trade Center. So they shut down the hospital and no one could come and go because they needed to have the space just in case. So for me, I was triggered again because you're leaving him again. Like, this person left him in the street to die like a dog.
Uh-huh.
And now you're telling me I can't sit with him, I can't be with him, he can't have his family around him as he's
Yeah.
trying to fight this. It was just like, what are you talking about? And the stuff that had to happen for him to get to just that day was crazy. Like his heart was bruised so bad that they had to collapse the only good lung he had to service his heart.
Uh-huh.
Because if they didn't do that, then his heart could have erupted just from the damage.
Uh-huh.
But they collapsed the good lung. So the bad lung was the one that he was living on. And of course,
Uh-huh.
that's strange. Now that's collapsed. So it's like all this stuff is happening. And then you're telling us we can't sit here and wait with him and be with him. So that kind of was a big trigger. And then September 16th, he ultimately passed away from his injury. So, like, all of this is happening. You're like, okay, daddy died September 3rd. We were all together to celebrate my dad's memory. And then you tell me 4 days later, my brother is now fighting for his life. Then 4 days after that, we can't even sit with him. We can't be with him. We can't remind him how much we love him. You know, the whisper in his ear to keep fighting. We couldn't do none of that anymore. And then September 16th, when he actually passed away, it happened to be the anniversary of two of his friends who also died on motorcycle accidents on
Wow.
that exact same day.
Wow.
And so when his funeral came September 21st, it became like, can this month hurry up in it? So, like, for the longest time, I never understood why September was always a drag. It's like, oh, goodness, can this month hurry up and end? But then I'm like, when I actually go through all the dates, it's like, well, you got September 3rd, September 7th, September 16th, September 21st.
Uh-huh.
Like, yeah, I'm ready for this to end.
Uh-huh.
Like, as soon as you think you're starting to like feel some relief from the grief, you
Yeah.
get hit with another date.
Yeah.
Then you get hit with another date. So it just became so overwhelming. But we have to deal with 9/11 and feeling like we're insensitive because, you know, my brother was already fighting for his life when the Twin Towers died. I mean, collapsed. We know people in the towers when they collapse. So it's not like we don't empathize, but it's like when we were forced to not be able to sit with him and be with him, it kind of made me personally feel like I was abandoning him,
Uh-huh.
and
Again,
it's
so
like,
second time, yeah, another person,
yeah,
being abandoned again.
yeah, and it's like, who will fight if they don't have that person whispering in their ear? In a sense, like none of us were allowed to be there any longer. We
Yeah.
tried to pull. He's a cop. We tried every kind of loophole to try to get in the door, and they wouldn't let us.
Wow. So with that, I wanted to ask you, now, all these years later, how do you mentally prepare when you know September's coming up? What are some things that you do to be able to prepare so that you don't kind of take steps backwards? Like, and this is maybe sharing with other people. How should they prepare for these milestones that they know are coming when these months are coming up?
For me, my song that I play automatically is this old song. It's called "Wake Me Up When September Ends." It's like this pop rock song, whatever it is. I literally play it the September 1st because it's one of those times where it's like, okay, I know it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's things that I'm going to have to deal with, but I honestly play that song. It kind of gets me in my mindset, like, okay, here it is. It's here. We know we got to get through it.
Mm-hmm.
So now that I've already played my anthem, when it starts to hit and the dates start to hit, what I do is I try to do things like memory walks. Like I try to discuss certain little things with my kids. Like, oh, your uncle would have done this, or your uncle would have been like this,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a way to keep them involved with him. But then I've always tell my husband, I was like, bear with me
Yeah.
because although I'm conscious of it, there's things that I do that I don't even know that I'm doing, which is a self preservation. It's like, hold on, I need a minute. I'm just going to lay down today. Today is not
Mm-hmm.
the day to do date night. Today is not, the day to really be out and about. I'm having a bad day. But when I talk about them, when I share the memories, when I share little things, it's like, okay, I can laugh today. I can, I can smile at that
Yeah.
because, oh my gosh, I remember when he did this. So it's like, that's how I have learned to deal
Mhm.
with it
Mhm.
because this year makes 23 years.
Wow. Wow.
23 years. So it's like, my brother has been going longer than he's been with me.
That he's been with than you knew him, right? So
Hmm.
you've lived longer without him than you did with him.
Exactly. So it's like, but I live with the ideal of him in mind
Yeah.
because a lot of the of my life choices have stemmed from him. Like I would have never went into social work if it wasn't for my brother. My brother was the one that could see a silver lining, give people the benefit of the doubt, or if he knew they was crooked as two left feet, he would try to give them alternate like suggestions, like maybe you want to try this. You're so good at persuasion, like
Mhm.
he'll make the negative seem positive, so that a person would then see it from a different perspective. Um, my brother was the one that would always tell you, like, yeah, the day might be a bad day, but you got something to look forward to tomorrow.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, because it's like you already know the day is bad, can't get no worse. So let's see what tomorrow has to have. So it's like little things like that he said, that he did. It's like I live by those principles. I work in a field that I feel would honor him. It
Mhm.
would be something that he would still want to help people with. I've learned over the years, maybe I'm not the most people person as he was. So like, you gotta take a step back on some of those things. But at least I'm still in the field that he created.
Yeah. Now, I think it's interesting. I'm going to come back to that because I do want to talk about like living for his legacy. I think that's good. You touch upon a lot of things, even the point of, and we heard this in last year when we had the death of a mother, and one of the guests was her theme was keeping that loved one alive through memories and how important memories are, and like you're even sharing it with your children who never met him, but it keeps him alive, and it keeps them knowing who he is in their hearts because they have stories about him and they hear about him. So I
Hmm.
think that's such a great I think message that the memories and sharing about our loved ones and sharing about those stories that make us smile, so that even though that person's gone, those children and grandchildren still have memories of the story, and they can come up in their mind.
Hmm.
They've seen pictures, they can have, that memory of them. But I think another thing that's important for your story is your age. So you were
Yeah.
17, you mentioned that. So I want to talk about what your grief looked like at 17. You know what I mean? In terms of how did you grieve? Who did you talk to? How did you get through? And again, you mentioned older sisters, and in terms of their age, and maybe they grieve differently. But talk about how you grieved at that age. Maybe even what lessons did you learn? Maybe from moms that may have children that are grieving at a young age as well. But even just how did you navigate through family relationships being so young?
So for me, initially, I didn't want to be here.
Mm,
Like I said, my brother was my best friend. He was my confidant. He was my everything. He was the only person that truly knew me inside and out. Like there was no questions on if I had, no matter how difficult the conversation was, I would talk to him. To this day, there's conversations that I've never had with my mother, but I've had with my brother. And mind you, I was only 17 when he passed. So these conversations obviously were, like, Mom, we never talked about sex, but I was able to talk about that with him. He
mm-hmm,
provided me information from a perspective that my brother, who wants my best interest at heart, would let me know. So it was like, okay, now I see why it's important to wait. Got it, big bro. But I've never had these conversations with my own mom. So when he was gone, it was like, why do I want to be here?
wow. Who do I
Like,
talk to
what?
now? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, I'm not going to talk to my mother. I'm sure enough not going to talk to my sister, even though we're females. But it's not the same. Like, he
Mm-hmm.
was my my everything. He took on that father figure role when my dad died. Like, he took that serious, even though he was 18 when my dad died. It was like, nope, I got her. So like, I was like his baby, you know? So like when he was gone, it was like, why? Like what is the purpose of
Mm,
being here? Um, I got through it for a couple of reasons. One, he, like I said, he would always say things like, tomorrow will be fine, tomorrow will be better, no matter what you're going through, you know, you gotta look at it from a different angle. He would say little things like that where it was like it made you pause and think about what you were doing so
yeah.
you didn't make any rash decisions. You know, you kind of had to go back and reflect before you did something. So that was a good part of
Mhm.
the grieving process. It's like just remembering his lessons and what he's telling me. Another thing was a lot of his friends were like, your mom couldn't handle nothing like that. And, you know, like even when I was thinking about being a cop, just because he was a cop, they was like, oh no, your mom wouldn't be able to handle another loss like that. And when they said stuff like that, I'm not looking at it from my mom has lost a child. You know, I'm looking at it, it's the career that he was in. I want to follow in his
Mhm.
footsteps. I want to make
Mhm.
him proud. But when I'm hearing it from their perspective of what her loss was, it made me change the direction. So I can do social work, I can do public service, but maybe not in a field where I can actually get harmed
In
to
danger.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
degree.
Mhm.
So like it changed some of that. So for me at 17, grief was initially one, not want to be here. Two, it was rebellion. Like
Mhm.
whatever my mother said, I listened in front of her, but did what
Yep.
I wanted to do anyway.
Mhm. Mhm.
There was times when it was just like whatever. You know, you didn't want to be around friends because everybody got that sympathetic. Oh, your brother died. Oh, I'm so sorry. And it's like I don't want to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm already dealing with it. Having that on top of it wasn't helpful. So, but what I did do, like I said, I took his memories, I took what he said, and I started to think about who's going to live for him now. You know, and that's when the transition from grief to living through grief
Mhm.
started to happen for me because it became okay, my brother is gone. He was my dad's lineage in the sense of male heirs. He has no children. He has nobody to live on for him. Who's his legacy? And that's when it really started to click for me that I can't leave this earth because who's going to talk for him? Who's going to speak for him? Who's going to remember him the way I remember him?
Wow.
And so that began that transition. My mom offered therapists and counselors and all that stuff. I rejected it at initially because it's
Mhm.
like, I don't want to talk to nobody about this.
Mhm.
I'm already having to figure out how to deal with it. He's not going to be here for my high school graduation. He's
Yeah.
not even going to be here to help me pick out what college I decide on, which is, we were in the process of that though before he got into this accident. He's not going to be here to walk me down the aisle eventually. He's not going to be here to meet my husband, to grill my husband, you know, give him the eye.
Mhm. Mhm.
So he's not going to be there for that. He's not going to be here for my future kids and all of these milestones that I'm going to have. Like
Yeah.
he's not going to be here for that. But then again, he's also not going to have that. So that's when I was like, you know what? I can't not live a life with him in the forefront.
Wow.
One of my sisters always say like, oh, you can't live for him. I'm not living for him. I'm living because of him.
Mm.
I'm living to show that, yeah, sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes it's hard, but you got a memory of him. My brother's behind me if y'all can't see that little drawing somebody did for us. But you gotta live for him. Like in the sense of this would make him proud. This would make him excited. This would like I was telling my daughter the other day, like, oh my gosh, your uncle would have been I've been fighting him to keep my own daughters. Like he would have been
Mhm.
coming down here to take you to tea
Mhm.
parties and
Mhm.
princess balls. Like what? I would have to fight him just to have you for myself, you know? So like these are things that I tell my kids so that they can understand how big of an impact he would have made for them.
Yeah.
But knowing that that's a loss for them, I also explain like, but he did it for me, so that's why I can do it for you.
Yeah. I think what you're sharing as well is a way to honor him. You know, you're honoring his memory. And like we said earlier, just keeping him alive. And so with that, as you're honoring him, let's talk about maybe some life lessons that you have learned about grieving, you know, as an adult now. So you're processing it as an adult, and you're living in his honor. And a lot of the things that you're doing are in honor of him and are a result of things that he taught you. So talk about maybe life lessons that you've learned from all this as well.
So some of the biggest life lessons is that, you know, at the time we weren't religious at all. So I believe now as I've grown that his death was a catalyst for me building a relationship with God.
Wow.
And sometimes it's like, why do you have to go through certain things? But it's like, it's truly the definition of all things work together. Because had it not been for that, would I be where I am today? Would I have put my trust in God to see me through when I've lost so much? When I've lost what I felt was everything. So, like, as I've grown, I realize that God is truly in the midst of everything. He turns, you know, the bitter to sweet, you know. So, things like that, it's like, okay, I see you, Lord. I see that I had to experience this to understand that life does go on, that
Yeah.
life is valuable, and that there is something that everybody has to fulfill in life. And although I felt my brother didn't fulfill certain things, he did. Like, my brother was the happiest person in the world. He went on trips when he felt like it, did what he wanted. You know, like he lived his life. He never, to me, never kind of sat on the sidelines and let it pass him by. So as I've grown, I've learned, yes, God is in the midst of this, that I have to lean on him and depend on him to get me through. And even in the difficult times when I do have the low moments in September or birthdays, that holidays that come up, you know, all the ones that they've missed so far. When those things happen, it reminds me that I'm okay because I've gotten to this point so far. Tomorrow will be another day. You know, we'll see what happens. It might be a good day, might be a bad day. But at least I get to experience that day. I can't, I'm not stopping myself from living my life because of something that has happened
Wow.
to me.
Yeah.
You know?
And you see that happen so often sometimes with people that are struggling with grief. Their life literally stops. You know,
Yeah,
and
you
it's
get
true.
stuck.
Our lives change, you know, granted. But your life changing versus your life stopping, I think, are two very different things. Work
I feel
sometimes,
like you
like you
get
shared.
stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you get stuck a lot of times where it's like, okay, this is where it stopped for them, so this is where I'm stopping. And it's like, I can't.
And
But it
almost
took
feeling guilty
a
about
while.
having joy, right? Almost feeling
And having,
guilty about having a
like,
good time. Go ahead.
yeah, I can go laugh. I can enjoy Six Flags. Like my kids found pictures of him at Six Flags. They're like, "Oh, your brother was there too." I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah." Like he was on this roller coaster, you know. So it's like you can't stop living. The moment you do, it kind of defeats the purpose of, like, to me, of their lives
Yeah.
because you start living. Like I said, for me, I started living for him because
Such a
he
great.
didn't have kids.
Yeah.
He didn't have he didn't have anybody else but his siblings and his nephew, you know, at the time. And it's like we knew who he was
Yeah.
to his core. And it's like for me to not want somebody to know that, what? That's a disservice to humanity. Like he is amazing. So like I have to show what he put into this earth.
Yeah, and I want you to talk about, like you just mentioned, in terms of him not being here, but even with family, like talk about, and we experienced it as well, the family events, Christmas, some of the holidays or just birthdays, whatever, and just always remembering that, he's missing and your father's missing. So I want to maybe ask a two-parter, maybe talk about that combination of grief with multiple family members, multiple immediate family members that are no longer there, but then how do you work through and process family events, with family members and things like that? How do you work through that?
So for us, initially, Christmas wasn't a big deal, because my dad was Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't really like a loss in the sense when he passed away, because he really wasn't present for those moments anyway, because he didn't celebrate it. But for my brother, it was harder because he was the life of the party. It was like he would come in, he would act a fool, he would get everybody laughing. So with his absence, it was a little bit harder.
Mm-hmm.
I know for certain my mom didn't process well for a couple years. It was like, y'all can have Christmas, but I'm not. You know, to this day, my mom doesn't wear a watch because she's like, what's the purpose of knowing what time it is? Like, everything changed when he passed. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, keeping time doesn't really make a
Wow.
difference for me.
Wow. That's
So, it's like, so that's kind of how it started. It's hard. We know he's missing because that energy is gone. That
mm-hmm.
that passion, like the like I said, the bona fide clown, jokester, everything is gone. But you have to go for it. Like my sister, eventually she started getting angels for her trees for all of the family members that we lost throughout the
Mm-hmm.
years.
Mm-hmm.
She started with my brother and my dad, even though my dad didn't celebrate Christmas. She started with them. She put their angels on a tree, and then when our grandmother passed, she added hers. And my uncle passed, he added his. So it's like it became a tradition
Mm.
to adding those angels on our tree to kind of keep them there with us when we have the family holidays
I
and
love that.
big
Yeah.
gatherings.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, we might have to do that. So talk to my family. I like that about just having the ornament or angel or whatever just on the tree to have their memory there. Wow.
Hmm.
The next question I wanted to ask you, and I want to take it back, and maybe some people may have, I don't know if you even mentioned it, but the reason 9/11 was so significant because your brother was a police officer in Newark, New Jersey, which is,
Yeah.
right across the harbor or the river there. But
Hmm.
there was a great kind of story in your blog about and Newark, and anybody knows there are some difficult and rough parts of the city, but talk about how he interacted with some of the young men there, in the basketball court, and just kind of like the impact that he had on that community as well.
Yeah, so like my brother was the one. My brother was the type of cop who would go to the basketball court and like play with the drug dealers, and it was a twofold purpose. One, it kept them from actually selling drugs because they were playing basketball. You know, like you're not out here slinging a rock if you playing basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one thing. And then two, he would like say dumb stuff to them like, you out here get beat by old man, you might want to rethink going to school, dude. Stuff like that. And it's like little jokes and stuff, but some of the guys actually did go back get their GEDs. He was like, you really good at math. Look at you. You're able to divide, multiply real fast. Like, come on, you could be an accountant. Like he would do things like that to like sway them from continuing on the path. But I mean, people still make their own decisions. But I just thought that was crazy. And even when my brother passed away, I mean, you had drug dealers coming to our house saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for your loss. Your brother was this, your brother used to do this, And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, really? Like, we got drug dealers knocking on our door to talk about a cop rather than being glad another cop is
Mm-hmm.
gone. It was like, oh my gosh, your brother was so amazing. He always was a jokester. He always came around. He didn't make us feel like we were less than just because of the path that we were on at that point.
Yeah.
So, like, those things were kind of impactful because, like I said, he always wanted to help people. Didn't matter who you were. It was just like if I have the ability to, I'm here. Let me see what I can do. Um, the day he got hit, which is crazy, he actually got that day off because he
Mm-hmm.
had just helped save a little boy that was like in a domestic situation where he
Oh my
climbed up the
gosh.
fire escape, grabbed the baby from the dad who was like literally about to stab the mom in the neck. Like it was craziness. But they gave him that day off because he had just saved his little boy. You would hear other stories about how my brother would like be on the bus, like riding New Jersey Transit on a bus, full uniform, and he'll see a drug deal go down, and he'll just pop off the bus to arrest somebody just because it's like, you can't be doing this in broad daylight.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like
Hmm.
little things like that. That these are stories that we've heard later on, and some of them was like I said with the little boy that he saved. It was like, wow, your brother was crazy, but he was out there. He was there to help the people. So it's just like, oh, you missed it.
I love that, and I think one of the lessons I'm taking from your story is to just continue to share those stories. Like I'm hearing you talk, and I know there was heaviness, initially coming on, but you're smiling and you're laughing as you talk
Yeah.
about those stories. And I think that's so important to be able to just be able to share those memories and those good times. It's things that you can think about that make you smile about your
Hmm.
loved one. I think it is so important. Again, like we said, to just share those with our children and share those with relatives that may not have known that, and I think that kind of brings them joy, and it brings a bit of healing, I think, even to the situation, even in kind of sharing those stories and just laughing about memories like that. One other interesting thing, I know we were talking about it, we laughed about, and again, it's a blessing to be able to laugh through grief, but the songs about September, talking about how difficult September is. So talk about even these songs and what you think about, again, the struggle with the month of September and the songs that are out that always remind you.
So, like I said, like it's weird because I never really paid attention to the words of certain songs because it was just music in the background. But there's this Temptation song. It was the 3rd of September, that date I'll always remember.
Okay, sing. I hear your voice. I
And
hear
it
you.
goes, that was the day that my daddy died. And I'm
Mm,
like, oh, that
mm-hmm.
actually is the day my dad died. So
That's your
like,
dad died. Yes.
so it's like, I might want to rethink playing that song and
Isn't that
really be like
crazy? Isn't that
going into
crazy?
it. And then it's like, and like I said, the song that I play the most is this song called "Wake Me Up When September Ends," and it's like I said, it's like a punk rock song, but
Mm-hmm.
it came out around like initially I thought it was because of people don't want to go back to school type stuff. You're like, oh, September's coming, we got to get back into the grind, and that was initially the thought process of the song. But then as I've gone through deaths in September, funerals in September, it really is like, let me get through this month. So just get
Yeah.
me up at the end. It was so bad that I didn't even want to have my son in September. He was due September 26th. And when I say I was grateful he was a preemie, it is
Mm,
sad.
mm.
My son was a 34 weeker. He came August 23rd, a whole month and a half early. And
Wow.
I was just like, I thank you for keeping them, Lord. I thank you for allowing me to have them in the first place. But I am so grateful I don't have to have them in September.
And that's joy
And that's
before September, right? Even being
yep.
able to celebrate his life before the month of September as well.
What? And I was like, if he would have came August 30th, it still was August. It was just like not
Mm-hmm.
in September. And what's weird is September 21st is the funeral. But like after September 21st, I'm actually on the mend. I'm
Mm.
okay because my best friend's birthday is September 25th. Who would have thought?
So it's
You
like that's
know,
the final milestone in September. That's the final thing you have to get through
I
in
get to, and I was
September.
like, after his funeral, it's like, okay, I start to come out of it. My best
Mm-hmm.
friend's birthday is September 25th. My grandfather's birthday is September 27th. So it was like, okay, like I'm coming, gradually easing out. I'm gradually getting
Yeah.
there. And it's like with those at the end of the month, it kind of gives you something to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I got to get past this date, but at least when I get here, I got something I can do. Whether it's just we just going to eat cupcakes, whatever. It's just a way out. And then we have my nephew October 4th. My middle baby girl, she's October 12th. So it's like we missed
So
September for birthdays,
sandwich, yeah, sandwich in
literally.
between. Mm-hmm.
it was like, whew, see, Lord, you knew my heart.
Wow.
You knew I couldn't handle being having a September baby because I would be a funky mood and they would be getting a bad mom or emotionally unavailable mom for a little bit of that month. So it was best that they came before or after.
Yeah.
And everybody is before or after. So September was like just missed.
It's interesting. We had a guest that actually wrote a book, and I'm just kind of trying to recall what she shared. But one of the things that she talked about, I think this might have been in our death of, loss of a mom series, was when those milestone dates approach, actually scheduling something on those milestone dates to counteract, some of the difficult feelings and emotions you might be feeling. So that was one of the things that she had wrote in her story that I thought was very profound. That those dates, those certain dates in the calendar are coming up, but let's plan something. Like I know last year my brother passed away, or the anniversary of his passing. We went to the tulip farm out here, and my family didn't enjoy it as much as I did. So I'm not bringing it up anymore. But for me, it was just like to be amongst so much beauty in the tulips, and it was just something. Whether it's for a couple hours, that kind of gets your mind off of it. So that's one of the things that I just wanted to share, even with you and with our guests, is sometimes on that date, when that milestone date is coming, and there's sometimes that you struggle with it, maybe to schedule something that can kind of take you out of it for a minute, or something that'll bring you joy, or even something with a memory to be able to get through that date.
And see, for me personally, I celebrate his birthday still to this day. My kids are like, "Why do you always make cupcakes on June 8th?" Because my daughter's birthday is June 11th. So they're like, "Aren't you a little early?" I'm like,
No,
"No, I know what I'm
celebrate
doing.
them.
Leave me
That's
alone."
sweet.
But I don't really try to remember the death, you know.
The
So
life.
it's like
Yeah.
I always still celebrate his birthday.
Mm-hmm.
I always celebrate like things that I know he would enjoy. So like 4th of July is his thing. He just loves it. Like not necessarily for the fireworks, but just the cookout. Like he would
Okay.
be cookout, to cookout, to cookout, to cookout. He was all about the food. So it
Mm-hmm.
was like 4th of July is a big deal for him. So of course we'll do something. And our mom's July 7th. So it's always like it seemed like it was always something incorporating
Yeah.
so that it was like okay. But when the deaths come, it's more so like okay, it happened, but I try not to dwell
To give
on
too
the
much
date.
attention. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's smart. That's smart. I have thoroughly enjoyed this. Again, I know before we were going on stage and kind of making sure. And I don't think did you cry? I don't think you cried at all tonight, did you?
I didn't. I did
No.
not. I caught it. Like,
So
yeah, I
praise
managed to hold it
Praise
together.
God. I mean, right, you're smiling and laughing. I just love hearing the happy parts, of his life. And I told you, like, I read about him. I wish I could have met him. He sounds like an amazing, amazing person. But I just want to thank you for that message of we have to live. We still
Yeah.
have to live, and especially like you said, living in someone's honor, living in someone's memory, and making sure that we're honoring their legacy. But there's a question here: do you still roller skate? I saw Ann put that up.
Yes. And I learned how to ice skate too, just to
Okay.
be ignorant. I was like, I got to do it on both the land, on the ice, and the rink. So yeah, I can still do both.
Yes.
Can't back skate as much. I'm like, ooh, a little too old. If I fall going
The fall
backwards,
is
it
not the
hurt a little
same,
bit
right?
more.
The fall's
It
not the
hurt a
same.
little bit more now. But I got my kids into roller skating too. Like all of them can skate now.
That's sweet. That's sweet. And I see Simply Joyce on. She said he was. He was. So yes. We just again want to honor you. Thank you so much. We want to honor Melvin and just thank you for sharing your story with us. We want to invite everyone to come back as we continue on this series. Next week, my sister Tina May, she was on here for our cancer series 3 years ago, and she is coming back to join us to talk about my brother's loss. So this series is even personal to me, dealing with the loss of my brother during the pandemic. And it's interesting as we, I meet with all of our guests initially, just kind of review the blogs that they've submitted. So when I met with my sister, we didn't get through 3 minutes before the talk. I'm hoping next week is the same where you think you're gonna be one way, but hopefully we can talk about the joy. We can laugh and we can enjoy his memory and there's difficult times. We do want to talk about how we work through our grief and dealing with certain things like that as well. But we just invite you to join us back as we talk about my brother Tyrone and his life And yeah, just for this month, it's Stacey Williams is going to close this out, Pastor Stacey Williams, and I met with her this week, and another powerful story. So again, whether you lost a brother or not, I think all of us deal with grief at a certain level. So anyone that's dealing with grief, please come back and join us. Bring a friend if you know someone's struggling with grief. We would just love to have you and be able to minister to you. And Carolyn Lewis is saying thank you for sharing. My mother-in-law is saying thank you so much for sharing. I love you. So thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate you, and we hope to see you next week. And God bless. Take care.